Welcome, everyone. Friday morning, the day after round one of the NFL draft. Kevin Smith with you at the Call Sheet Podcast here on the Fans First Sports Network. Today on the show, we are recapping round one. We're going to do a quick hit on all 32 first-round picks, little recap at the end, and really get ourselves ready for the weekend, get ourselves ready for the rest of the rounds. Very entertaining first round, a couple of surprises, some interesting picks, some picks maybe we didn't expect, a lot of trades, a lot to jump into. All right, so let's go right away. We're going to whip through the 32 picks, a quick comment on each, and then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about some of the things I found particularly interesting. We start at number one overall with the Raiders. They took Fernando Mendoza. No surprise there. He's going to be a really good fit in that offense. But I think the best thing for Mendoza, he gets to sit behind Kirk Cousins for a little while. Get to learn from Klint Kubiak. There are some similarities in Mendoza's game and in Sam Darnold's game, who Kubiak just coached to a Super Bowl title this past year in Seattle. So I really like that fit and that situation for Klint Kubiak. Pick number two, the Jets go with David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech, tied for the is it FBS? I don't know. It's Division I to me still. FBS lead in sacks last year, 14 and a half sacks. He can absolutely rush the passer. I guess my only concern with David Bailey is he going to be able to play the run? I did some breakdowns of him. I think one thing that I didn't like about his game is you see him jump around blocks a lot in the run game. And he's quick enough, athletic enough to be able to fall back in and still make plays. But I don't know if you get away with that in the NFL. So let's see if David Bailey can hold up as a run defender. But man, he can rush the passer. And the Jets, who were last in the NFL in sacks last year, absolutely can use that. One of the most intriguing picks of the draft comes at number 3. Arizona takes Jeremiah Love, the running back out of Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love, lot to like about him. Explosive, powerful. He's going to be arguably a top 5 running back in the NFL if Arizona can build an offensive line that can actually block for him. I mean, my worry there is they're bad on offense. They need a lot of talent at a lot of different positions. Do you start with the running back? It feels to me like you build the team elsewhere and then you draft the running back. They're not doing it quite like that. I mean, I've coached a lot of games against teams that had really good running backs and bad lines, and rarely did the running back hurt us. Every once in a while they might bust a big one. But for the most part, the running back success is tied to the ability of the offensive line. Do they have the line, or will they be able to build the line in Arizona to support Jeremiah Love? That would be my question. All right, pick number 4, Tennessee, who I think had their sights set on Jeremiah Love, instead pivot and they go with Carnell Tate, arguably the top receiver in this draft. Lot to like there. Cam Ward needs weapons. Hard to argue that pick. One of the best route runners in the draft, a really good deep ball threat. So he's going to give Cam Ward a field stretcher. Number 5, the Giants. They take Arvell Reese, the linebacker out of Ohio State. He's a kid who you got to figure there's going to be a learning curve there because he's played linebacker, he's played edge. What's he going to play in the NFL? I'm not sure we have an answer to that just yet. His measurables are through the roof. He's one of those guys who, if his play ever matches his physical ability, he'll be an all-pro. But if he doesn't handle the learning curve, he might get lost in the shuffle. So it'll be very interesting to watch his progress in New York. Pick number 6, the Chiefs trade up 3 spots with the Browns to land Mansour Delane, the corner out of LSU. Very good corner. I guess my only question is, did they need to trade up? I mean, they must have felt like maybe Washington at number 7 was going to take him, and that's why they traded up, but they parted with a 3rd and a 5th round pick to get him. That feels like a lot just to move up 3 spots. But, Kansas City obviously is thin at corner, and so Delane will fill an immediate need there. Pick number 7, Sonny Styles, one of the most sound players in this draft, a great leader with a ton of experience at Ohio State, just a perfect off-ball backer. I think he'll fit pretty well in Dan Quinn's system there in Washington. That feels like a spot where Sonny Styles will step in, and he'll just be a leader on that defense from day one. At number 8, the Saints go for Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. He could be the most complete receiver in the draft, but obviously there are injury histories there, injury history that has caused him to miss games in every year of his college career. A lot of people say, if you're not healthy in college, you're not going to be healthy in the pros. We'll see. But if Jordan Tyson is healthy, pairing him opposite Chris Olave could be phenomenal for Kellen Moore's offense in New Orleans. Pick number 9, the Browns go with Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle out of Utah. Big athletic OT. He's played tackle. He's played guard. He's got that positional flexibility that a lot of teams value. He's a super athlete. For a guy who's 321 pounds, he can move. He can get out in space, block on the perimeter, pull, kick. I guess my question about him will be, is he going to be able to put his hand in the dirt and just move big defensive linemen? He's got to block down on a 3-tech. Is he going to be able to move, one of those guys, Dexter Lawrence, who's going to play in his division now in Cincinnati? That'll be the thing to watch with Spencer Fano. At number 10, the Giants pick again, and they take Francis Mauigoa out of Miami. He, I think, is the best and most complete offensive tackle in the draft. Just a mauler, physical dude, nasty, plays with an attitude. If they can get Arvell Reese where he needs to be, you can make the argument the Giants have come away with the 2 most talented players in this draft. Speaking of, Cowboys move up 1 spot to number 11 to take Caleb Downs. In my book, Caleb Downs is the best overall football player in the entire draft. Dallas was terrible on defense last year. And so landing maybe the best overall player in the draft, obviously a huge deal for the Cowboys, and it didn't cost them much to move up 1 spot. The team they trade with, Miami, they take Caden Proctor out of Alabama, 6'7", 365 pounds. I mentioned this on the podcast the other day. I stood next to him at the NFL scouting combine. Never felt so small in my life. Massive human being. I think the issue with Caden Proctor is he's got the size, he's got the skill. Is his motor and his focus going to match his physical attributes? That'll be the challenge there. Pick 13, maybe the most intriguing pick of the first round. The Rams take Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. I mean, his projection was all over the map. Some people had him first round. Some people had him all the way down to the 3rd round. I think it's a perfect landing spot. Absolutely perfect. He's going to get to sit behind Matthew Stafford. Stafford, I'm sure, will be a great tutor for him. He's in a great scheme. Alabama ran a lot of McVay-style stuff. He now is going to get coached by Sean McVay. He doesn't have to take the field maybe for 2 years, so he's going to have plenty of time to develop. It's a great landing spot. I guess my only question about this is the Rams are a Super Bowl contender right now. And with a lot of talented guys on the board, it's a little surprising that they made an investment pick. Yeah, a pick in a guy who might not play for them for 2 years. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Pick number 14, the Ravens. Frickin' Ravens, man. As a Steelers fan, I can't stand the Ravens, and yet I admire them so much. They take my number 1 guy, the guy I wanted more than anybody else for the Steelers, Vega Ione, the guard out of Penn State, who is just a mauler, a physical dude, a people mover. He's a plug-and-play starter. I mean, he's a guy that's probably going to be a fixture on the interior of your line for the next 10 years, opening holes for Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. I mean, yeah, it pisses me off, but at the same time, hats off to the Ravens for what I think is one of the best picks of the first round. Speaking of, I think Tampa Bay got a steal with Ruben Bain at 15. He should have been a top 10 pick in my estimation. You want to talk about a dude with a hot motor. This guy, the motor runs. I mean, he gets off of blocks. He pursues the football. He can get worn out at times, but it's not because of a lack of effort. It's because of just high effort constantly. So I think Ruben Bain will really upgrade the defense in Tampa. At 16, the Jets come back and they take Kenyon Sadiq, who is an intriguing tight end out of Oregon. You can do some puns with his name, Sadiq the Freak. Sadiq is unique. I like that last one. Sadiq is unique because he's a 6'3", 240-pound tight end who ran 4.39 in the 40 and had a 40-plus inch vertical jump. His measurables are more in line with a guy 40 or 50 pounds lighter, with a pure wide receiver. 240-pound guys running 4.39, that's not something you see very often. So I think, but I think the interesting thing about Sadiq is he's kind of a tweener. Does he put his hand in the ground at tight end? Is he better lined up in the slot as a wide receiver? The Jets' ability to figure out how to use him to maximize his potential will probably go a long way towards determining how successful that pick is. All right, as we get into the second half of the first round, at pick number 17, the Detroit Lions, team that really needed offensive line help. They get it. They take offensive tackle Blake Miller out of Clemson. My good friend Paul Callahan, frequent guest here on the Hot Route, says Blake Miller is his favorite tackle in the draft. And I will trust Coach Cal's recommendation and say Detroit gets a good one in Blake Miller. The Vikings take Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle out of Florida, only played 3 games this past year because of some injuries. He's another physical freak, 6'6", 325 pounds with an unbelievably explosive get-off. Brian Flores plays that penetrating style on defense. He's a great penetrator, a great athlete for a guy as big as he is. The challenge will be for him to stay healthy. Can he overcome those injury issues? At pick 19, the Panthers take offensive tackle Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. Some people had him as a top 10 pick. There was a debate. Is he or Maui Noah the number 1 tackle in this draft? But Freeling kind of slides a little bit to the Panthers at 19, and he's going to probably be plugged in right away as their starting left tackle. He made 44 starts I take that back. That was Miller with all the starts. Freeling's a guy he's actually a little bit young in terms of his experience, but he'll probably plug and play there with the Panthers at left tackle. All right, now it gets really interesting. Pick number 20. The Eagles were scheduled to pick 23rd. They moved up to number 20 with the Cowboys, and they took Makai Lemon, the receiver from USC, slot receiver, arguably the best yak receiver in the draft, guy who's phenomenal with the ball in his hands. And this is interesting for 2 reasons. One, because it pretty much signals that A.J. Brown is gone. We've been hearing those rumors for a long time, and we've been hearing it as a post-June 1 trade for salary cap purposes. When June 1 arrives, there's some salary cap issues involving veterans that makes trading Brown a better deal financially for the Eagles. And so supposedly they have a deal worked out with New England for a post-June 1 trade of A.J. Brown. If that's true, well, them moving up to get in front of Pittsburgh, who picked at 21, to take Lemon would certainly add some fire to the smoke. So it certainly seems like Makai Lemon will both A, be a really good fit in Philly, and B, will serve to replace A.J. Brown in their lineup, which brings us to the Steelers at 21. I'm a Steelers fan. A lot of Steelers fans listen to this podcast. I have to say I'm disappointed. They took, I'm going to try not to butcher this young man's name, Max Ihianakor out of Arizona State. I'm pretty sure it's Ihianakor. We're going to hear his name over and over again, so I will make sure I pronounce it properly. Max Ihianakor out of Arizona State, 3-year starter at offensive tackle. I think he needs some work. I think he's a bit of a project. I worry about the pick because although he's much more experienced than Broderick Jones was when they took him out of Georgia a couple years ago, when I look at Ihianakor's game, it feels similar to Broderick Jones's game. It feels a little like Broderick Jones 2.0. But the reason I'm disappointed is because reports have surfaced that the Steelers were on the phone with Makai Lemon, informing him that they were picking him at 21 when the news broke that Philly had traded up with Dallas. And in a draft where Pittsburgh has 12 picks, you don't have room on your roster for 12 guys. You don't need 12 picks. So you need to package some of those picks to make some deals, to move around. When you got to like 17 or 18, something like that, and you realized Lemon was still on the board and he was the guy you wanted, shame on you for not going up and getting him. Shame on you for not moving up 2 or 3 spots and unloading some of those later round picks in order to get the guy you really wanted. If he was the guy you wanted at 21 and you just were passive and tried to let it come to you, shame on you. So congratulations to the Eagles for going up and getting the guy you wanted. And, hey, I hope Max Ihianakor, I hope he turns into a stud tackle for the Steelers. But the fact they didn't get the guy that they wanted, I think is a mistake on their part. All right, number 22, Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher from Miami, goes to the Chargers. High motor guy, intense guy, violent pass rusher. I think he'll fit in great with the Harbaugh scheme there. Pick 23, the Cowboys take another defender, Malachi Lawrence out of UCF. I'm not going to swear I know a ton about Malachi Lawrence. I know he's a good pass rusher. Cowboys need pass rushers. I'll withhold judgment on him till we see a little more. Just not that familiar with his game. A guy I am pretty familiar with, pick number 24. Browns take KC Concepcion, the receiver out of Texas A&M. Very explosive with the ball in his hands. Really good route runner. Has had some issues with drops, so focus and concentration might be an issue for him. Be very interested to see how he plays out in Cleveland. They certainly need help. They were last in the NFL last year in receptions by receivers. So they certainly need help at the position. 25, the Bears take one of my favorite players in the draft. If Venga Ione was my favorite player, then Dylan Thieneman, the safety out of Oregon, was my second favorite. He'll go to the Bears, where I think he's going to be a great fit, a versatile piece who will wear a lot of different hats in their defense, which certainly needed help on the back end. At pick 26, the Texans trade up to take Kalen Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech, who's just a nasty, violent guy, and he can do it all in the run game. Might need a little work in his pass protection, but he can down block, he can pull, he can reach, he can log, he can climb. Got a really complete game as a run blocker. 27, the Dolphins take Chris Johnson, the corner out of San Diego State. Some people have said they think he's the best corner in this draft. So we'll see. Miami may have gotten a bargain there. 28, the Patriots trade up to take Caleb Lomu out of Utah. I don't know. That feels a little bit like a reach to me. I interviewed him at the Combine. He definitely needs to put on some muscle. He doesn't look like an NFL-ready offensive tackle. He's a big dude. He's 6'6". I think they list him at like 305, but I don't know if he weighs that much. He looks like he needs to get thicker up top. And that'll be my question for him. How long will it take for him to get ready physically to handle NFL defensive linemen? 29, Kansas City, they take Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. He's a physical freak, phenomenal athlete, 300-pound defensive tackle who Clemson used as a running back at times. He scored a couple touchdowns as a running back. His issue is consistency. Like there are plays where he looks like an all-world guy. There are plays where he just disappears. So the Chiefs got to get him playing more consistent. The Jets trade up back into the first round at 30 to make their third first-round pick, and they get Omar Cooper Jr., the wide receiver out of Indiana, who's one of my favorite players in the draft. Was really hoping the Steelers would take him. Smart, savvy, good route runner, good with the ball in his hands. Great pick for the Jets. And then to round out the first round, at 31, Tennessee takes Keldrick Faulk, the edge out of Auburn. A little bit like Peter Woods, a little boomer bust there. And then Seattle finishes the round by taking Jadarian Price, running back out of Notre Dame. He'll slot in as a nice replacement for Kenneth Walker, who left in free agency. So that's your first round. Interesting stuff. Always interesting. Great environment there in Pittsburgh. If I have to recap the round, who did I really like? Who did I thought? I think the Jets killed it. I mean, when do you get to say that? I'm going to say that again because that's not something you get to say very often. The Jets killed it. Bailey, the edge rusher at number 2 overall, we know he can rush the passer, and the Jets absolutely need that. Again, I don't know if he's got a complete game. We'll find out. But if he's a one-trick pony, he's got a damn good trick, right? So you get Bailey, who, I really love. You get Sadiq, the tight end, who could be phenomenal. I mean, to me, he's a little boomer bust because if you don't use him the right way, he might just kind of get lost in the shuffle. But if you can figure out how to put his interesting skill set to use, he could be an all-pro player. And then you get Cooper, who I think is a pro's pro at the end of the first round. Were there guys were there picks I was disappointed with? Arizona taking Love, the running back. Again, I'll repeat this. Sometimes I feel like adding the running back is the end of the process, not the beginning. You build your roster. You build the good line. You get your quarterback. You identify some skill guys on the edge. Then you get your running back. I think that's the way you work it. You don't land the running back first. But obviously, Mike LaFleur, the new head coach there, feels like he's got something special in Jeremiah Love. And so they took a shot. And the most interesting pick of the first round has got to be the Rams taking Ty Simpson. They clearly see him as the heir to Matthew Stafford, and he may very well be that heir. But for a team that is ready to compete for a Super Bowl now, and with guys like Mekhi Lemon on the board when they picked, I just thought it was interesting they went for a future investment as opposed to a present asset. All right, that's round 1 of the draft is in the books. Lots going on tomorrow and Saturday. Join me on Monday because I'll have my 2 great friends, Gary Rickey and Wayne Mazzoni, on the broadcast. We're going to do a little round table to recap the draft as a whole. 2 great football minds, 2 guys that I've been talking football with for, it's going on 40 years now, which is amazing. And you'll love hearing their insight. And then, follow me on X at KT Smith Football all throughout the weekend. I'm going to be posting stuff constantly. And follow us here on the Fans First Network. We got lots of great draft stuff going on. All right, until Monday then. Good luck in the draft over the weekend, and I'll talk to you then.